Okay, so this is our budget hearing. It's just a really quick thing for if anyone has questions concerning the budget. I know no one is here with a question on the budget. I don't think we want to say anything about it. Okay, so if there are no, legally we have to do this. I know it seems extremely silly that we just started this. We ask if there's questions on the budget to hold a special meeting concerning the budget because during our 7 o'clock meeting we will vote on it. So by law we have to do this. So if there are no questions, I will take a motion in a second to adjourn this special budget meeting at 6:51 p.m. Jonathan and Chelsea. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll start the next meeting in 9 minutes. I would like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Yes. Okay, public comment and recognition of guests. I don't think we have any public comments tonight. Our first order is new business and the oath of office and seating of a new board member. Derek Fernandez is here tonight and will be our new board member. To do this, we have to, again, it's going to be a little weird. We have to do a motion. I need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting Sendai at 7 p.m. Oh, does that first? Oops, sorry. I'm like, this is such a weird thing. Okay. Just do it in a minute. Okay. Yeah, that one you have to hold. That's why he got it. Okay, so Derek, if you want to go ahead and read the oath of office.
Okay. I, Derek Fernandez, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Blue Ridge Community Unit School District Number 18, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interest by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Blue Ridge. I shall assist in establishing a structure and environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school to advance the vision for Blue Ridge. And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Okay. And so now we have a motion by Chelsea and a second by Jonathan to adjourn the meeting Sendai at 7:03. Yes. Okay. And you're good now. And then, okay, and so then now we need to call the regular meeting to order at 7:03. Present. So silly. Yes. Okay, we have presentations tonight. The first one is the American Heart Association.
If I could ask Mr. Ethan Hansen and Mr. Sam Barton to please come forward towards the podium. That's okay, you can clap for them. And gentlemen, if you can turn around and face the audience. That's okay, they're not going to speak, I'm going to speak for them. So I wanted everybody who's here tonight to be able to see these two gentlemen because what they do is very amazing. They motivate our students from grades K through 6 to go out and do some amazing fundraising, all in the name of the American Heart Association. And I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to be pretty astonishing. This year alone, because of the efforts of these two men, deploying your sons and daughters to go out in the community. This year alone, they have raised for the American Heart Association $21,898. Which brings Blue Ridge to a grand total donation level of $150,738 for the American Heart Association. So Sam and Ethan, if you don't mind turning towards me this time, thank you both for everything that you do, because that doesn't happen by itself. That's because of all the planning that you do, all the creative and fun things that students get to do to you afterwards. I've seen some of that on the parking lots and the playgrounds. But your willingness to do that and make it a high priority is why the American Heart Association has been blessed with these dollars consistently from Blue Ridge Schools. So we thank you for that. So Francie, if you don't mind going back out there again, Ryan's been a great photographer for me. If you could get a photo of them together, that would be fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, next we have our exemplary nights. I had exemplary nights. We are going to recognize our exemplary night staff members first. For our exemplary night staff members, you have been recognized by your peers for your exemplary work. As a Board of Education, we want to thank you for your efforts and positive impact on Blue Ridge. When I call your name, please come forward. From Schneider Elementary, we have Michelle Case. From Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School, we have Andrea Weedman. And from Blue Ridge High School, we have Scott Tongate. Sorry. They're so great.
Excuse you. Gorgeous, thank you.
Okay. And then also tonight, we want to recognize the exemplary actions that brought some students to the attention of their teachers and principal. As a Board of Education, we appreciate the efforts of these students and the excellence they have provided in our district, and we want to say thank you for a job well done. When I call your name, please come forward, and then we'll ask you to stay up here for a photo also. So from Blue Ridge High School, we have Joey Cole. Also from Blue Ridge High School, we have Presley Hardesty. For 8th grade, we have Jasper Schleeper. For 7th grade, we have Allison Pohl. For 6th grade, we have Addison Dotson. For 5th grade, we have Dale Peterson. For 4th grade, we have Leighton Slade. For 3rd grade, we have Alina Guest. Oh, got her. Oh, right over there. She's so excited. For 2nd grade, we have Jalen Ham. She's so excited. For 1st grade, we have Cambry Massett. And for kindergarten, we have Trenton Guest. ones.
Wait, we're ready until we're done. Ready, eyes on me, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Parents, anybody coming to get pictures, you're welcome to walk up.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Are people staying? Okay, up next, we have communications. Is they're all leaving?
Where are you all going?
The fun is just starting.
Two items on our communication list. One was the Art Night flyer. This is a little bit post facto, but Emily Weiler had invited us to attend her Art Night celebration. It was a wonderful event held at Snyder outside. The weather cooperated very nicely. She had the area prepared for fence painting, and we had many other, she had many other activities prepared. She had high school cheer that was there to help out. Many Snyder teachers, staff members were there to help out, and it was just a nice family-friendly event. And you need to, when you have a chance, go on the Snyder playground and be able to check it out, the fence from the other side. There's a nice, if you can be anything, be kind message, and a lot of young artists' renditions of what that might look like on the fence there. So thank you to Emily Weiler for that. We have had one FOIA request. It was requested that we report any certified librarians that we have in our district, and so I reported that, and the answer was Anita Beeman. And that's it for communication.
Okay. Up next is committee reports.
And there are none.
Easy enough. And up next is the IASB Advisory Board update. This is something new on our agenda, just for anyone who wasn't aware. We had asked about having someone serve on the advisory board, and Chelsea volunteered, so she will be giving us the update every time they have a meeting.
Yes. Hello. Is it on? Oh, it doesn't seem loud. So there were really 3 big things that we talked about. There's going to be this new thing for teacher vacancy grants. Really, it is to strengthen mentoring and instructional programs, especially for our new teachers. It's going to be a 3-year pilot program, and the licensing strategies for it are going to be addressed. There are going to be some tools for districts to use to address this teacher shortage. One of them is going to be short-term approvals for teachers, school support, and paraprofessionals, and then independent individuals that are holding teaching licenses in an area. They can just pass the content in the area, or they can take 9 hours in a new area. For not yet trained teachers, there is a content knowledge pathway for us if we ever needed a short-term teacher. There's a prep program, but mentorship and guidance will be coming from the district. School support personnel will need a master's degree or state or clinical licensure, and they must pass the content test. And then for paras, if they have a high school diploma, they can seek the approval while still trying to pass the content knowledge test. Hold on. I should have made my notes bigger, sorry. Or maybe I'm getting old. There are going to be apprenticeship programs to work under a master teacher, and this program is coming, so they're still working out the kinks in that. And it's going to be a grant through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So it's going to be a $2 million grant to 4-year colleges or universities that partner over 2.5 years. Substitute teacher availability is going to be extended to 90 days or extension through the semester subject to request. So you would just send that to the ROW or the ISC. And non-resident teachers, as long as it's, so ISB is changing this standard, school districts can still keep their old standard. but non-resident teachers will be able to enroll their students in the district tuition-free, no paperwork, anything like that, for the teachers' children. But the board must adopt that policy. So if we don't want to do that, we don't have to do that. There's also a literacy plan. It's a focus group, and it's going to be to provide specific feedback for the students and actors in the literacy space, and it's going to be applying all that feedback into the second draft of that plan that they are currently working on, and it will be presented in October and released to the public immediately. And a second listening tour will be in all 6 row areas. After that will then take place, and the plan is to enter 2024 with a finalized literacy plan for Illinois. For the IAR proficiency, ISB is gathering the tools to obtain input from the stakeholders, and it's going to be a big topic for the agency. It's going to be one of those longer range topics. They were asking for us to tell school districts, personnel, stakeholders to just be patient with it. Schools are seeking clarity on proficiency as a growth measurement, not a grade level measurement. So there is some misunderstanding between what schools are saying, the tests are saying, and how we're interpreting the results. So we're so used to, if a student gets proficient, we're like, oh, they're proficient at grade level, but this is proficiency in the mastery of the content. So we're trying to figure out, not we, but the advisory board is trying to figure out how best to educate the public that these test results are not the test results of the past. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. So proficiency, this is what they kept going back to. Proficiency is not a narrow grade level definition. So the State Assessment Review Committee, she's going to be working specifically, her name is Kristen, she's going to be working specifically on that issue of proficiency. They're going to be really working hard to figure out how we educate the public on that. And really, and then the last thing that we talked a lot about was swatting. Who here knows what swatting is? Okay, so you do. So it's hoax calls, from what I had never heard of it before this meeting. So schools are having more and more calls in of bomb threats and things like that, and it's becoming a wider issue throughout the entire state. So they are going to try to fix how they respond to that and educating the public about when a call is received, what is happening, if it's true or if it's not true, things like that. And so they're also going to be working on some mental and behavioral health initiatives to help address the increased SWAT calls that we are getting. And there is going to be a Safe to Help sign up for districts. It's something that we can sign up for if we wanted. It's a text, phone, email to the ISP to contact the state police to connect to community supports to respond or prevent. Those were the 3 big issues that we talked about. Does anybody have any questions?
What are the mental behavioral health initiatives?
They didn't.
To swatting?
They didn't go into specifics. They just know that the assumption is that we're having more of these calls because we have kids that have more mental and behavioral issues, and we need to start addressing that. Yeah.
Okay, up next is administrative reports. First up is Hillary.
Okay, so I'll go back to a couple weeks ago and just say that we started our admin team strong with an administrative retreat at the end of July, setting some goals for this school year. We had opening events at each of our school buildings that went very well first night. Each of our schools have gone through PBIS training this summer, and that's something that has been very impactful in setting up our social emotional learning curriculum that's going on in each of our buildings. We had found that we were talking about having discussions about doing interventions for students who were having social and emotional concerns, and then it came back to, well, we can't intervene when we haven't had the original instruction, the Tier 1 instruction, as we call it. So that's been a strong initiative for us to get that in place this year, and that's what we're doing in ongoing training for our teachers throughout the school year as well. iReady benchmarking and lessons are underway, and I won't talk too much more about that because probably Paige and each of the principals will have something to add to that as well, but we're up and running instructionally. I'll move to the strategic plan update. We're in, I believe, our second year of moving through our strategic plan, and we take those 5 broad board goal areas, and I bring back highlights to you every 3 months, so a quarterly report. And then that gets posted on the webpage, so those out in the community can see what those updates are as well. Just a few highlights for you in the communication area. It was encouraged that maybe some of our listeners are not looking at things digitally, so we have printed newsletters. We started over the summertime printing those colored monthly newsletters that I do after a board meeting, and those are now being delivered to our 3 post offices, so Mansfield, Bellflower, and Farmer City, and also 2 banks in Mansfield and Farmer City. So this month, when we go back out, we'll be able to see if any of those were missing and taken from those places, which will be maybe a slight indication as whether those were being read by citizens. We do have, and again, Mr. Payton will probably mention this, we have a literacy night that's planned for tomorrow at Snyder, so that's a big parent event that we're talking about. Sorry, I'm taking all your stuff, sorry. I'll take one of Andrea's things. We're talking about, we've had some new updates. We've always talked about how can we get our webpage more user-friendly. One of the pieces that we've looked at is we have a calendar that has a lot of stuff on it for parents, and it can be very hard to navigate when you have so many things on each day. That's how we kind of feel on the inside, but we want parents to have the easiest view possible. So Andrea and Dave did a very large overhaul. They had multiple conversations with me, sometimes to my tipping point of frustration, where I said, okay, come back, give me a plan that I can understand next time. So they have gone back through the calendars, and each building has a public calendar and a private calendar. And so if you're a parent and you only have interest in one building and the district as a whole, then you can just attach to those calendars. But if you have kids across all buildings, then you get to see it all. So hopefully we're making things and calendars a little bit easier for the great majority of our families. So that's been a big initiative. We will be talking at the end of the meeting about our next Blue Ridge Connect event. I hope that's going to be next month and that we can do that in Mansfield, which may also include having the board meeting in Mansfield, which will be a new thing for us to do. But we'll talk about that, and we'll have to make sure all of our exemplary night recipients know loud and clear that that would be in Mansfield. We wouldn't want them to show up to the wrong spot. A couple more highlights, and maybe Paige can talk about this a little bit more along with the principals. We talk about instruction and always moving forward in that area. Dual credit was one of the things that was asked for when we sat in the Commons and talked about strategic planning. And we have 2 right now, but next semester we'll have our 3rd dual credit course added in. Miss Lacey was here tonight just a few minutes ago, and she is teaching English 101 and English 102, and Casey Monsu is teaching FYE, first year experience. So with the support of Paige and many other people at the high school level, we've been able to add those 3 courses for this year, which is incredible. And a lot of data conversations are happening in each of the school buildings, which means they're talking about how students are achieving on their benchmarking tests, and what are we going to do about it once we know what those scores are. Where are they falling behind? Where are they going ahead of their peers? And what do we do because of that knowledge? So those are things that we can do when we have the personnel in place to be able to have the time and to address those things. And we have the materials available for them for teachers to have access to move kids quickly forward. So that's a strategic plan update, and if you don't mind, I'll go into the budget, hit the numbers next. Okay, so in your board packet, if you're online as a board member, if you could look at page 45. If you're in the audience, if you happen to pick up some of the number sheets in the back, you would be looking to the one that has more of the blue and yellow on it. This is just 2 pages of a very long document that gets turned into the State Board of Education by the end of September. That's a requirement to turn in the budget. And some of the things, I'll check my notes here, some of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention. There's many things on this document that get turned into what looks like our quarterly financial report. So I'll just point out a couple things. So if you go down about 6 or 7 lines to a place where it says total receipts/revenues, you can go across horizontally and you'll see in each of our funds, Fund 10 through 90, what our budget is anticipating for the revenues that are coming in. So it starts with the Ed Fund at just over 7 million, 7.3 million, almost 7.4 million, and so on to the right. You can then, underneath that, in the second pile of blue No, let's go up to the first pile of blue. In the first pile of blue, you can see how much of those monies are coming in from local sources. So for example, if you stay in column 10 for the Ed Fund, you can see that of the $7.3 million that are going to come into the Ed Fund, over $5 million of those dollars are going to come in from local sources. So that means our taxpayers are most heavily funding our schools. Okay? If you look underneath that, still in Fund 10 column, you can see that the state is going to fund just over 1.2 million of Fund 10, and federal sources just over 1 million. So very heavily local tax dollar dependent in our district. Next thing I want to point out to you is if you look at our expenditures, I'm going to come down past the blue and see the line of expenditures going across. But if you look at that second set of blue boxes, you're going to see how much money we have slated for instruction across the different funds and so on. I think it's kind of interesting to look at in Fund 10 again, payments to other districts and government units. That's written in blue. And if you look to Fund 10, that number is $636,034. That's just an example. You might ask, well, why are we paying other districts or government units out of the Ed Fund? That's where we're going to be paying Tri-County for our psychologist, our social worker, OT, PT, those kind of services in general, administrative services from Tri-County. You're also going to see any out-of-district tuition for several of our students being paid out of that fund. Also ROE services, so maybe some coaching that we're getting from the ROE, our social emotional learning, would be paid out of that fund as well. Okay. If you go down and look at the total expenditures, disbursements / expenditures, you can see those across in each of the funds as well. And then you're going to see the line that's the critical one for me to look at. It's above the third beige band. It's the one that says excess of direct receipts or revenues over the direct disbursements or expenditures. That's where we're going to see, are we upside down or are we right side up? And you're going to see a lot of red numbers there, and that should draw your brain to think, uh-oh, there's some concern there. And that's when I want to tell you that, same as what I emailed to you before I sent this out to you. We've talked about early taxes before, and this budget page is a direct result. The red that you're seeing on this budget page is a direct result of early taxes that were given to us by Piatt County. Early taxes are, I guess, a good thing because that money's sitting in our bank account earlier, but that was recorded in last year's budget. So that's an FY23 item. So I can't record that in the FY24 budget for revenue because it's not coming in this year. It's already here. So it's sitting inside of our fund balance. If I was to record it as an anticipated revenue, it would never show up. So then I would be off and you'd be asking me, well, why didn't it come in? Well, it didn't come in because it already did come in. It's sitting in the bank account. So that's why we have much lower anticipated revenues this year, because it was literally over $2 million that we got. It was, over $2 million that we got early from our taxes from Piatt County. So I would like for you to now go to your next page, which looks more like the quarterly financial report that you're used to seeing. So about a couple pages down in your board book. I think that's page 47. And this is where we start this document for the whole entire fiscal year. So now you're going to see things going vertically instead of horizontally. So what I've done so far is I took the unaudited fund balance. Our auditor's coming the end of next week. We anticipate him coming. But so far we have unaudited fund balances. So in column D, going from top to bottom, not in order from Fund 10 to Fund 90, but in kind of a crazy order, you'll see all of those unaudited fund balances. And then next to that in column E, also in green, you'll see the proposed revenues. Again, same thing that you saw in the budget summary, listed horizontally. Now it's listed vertically. You're also going to see in column E something new in blue. You're going to see the working cash bonds. We anticipate $3 million coming in from the working cash bonds. That's listed in a different spot because it's a little bit of an anomaly. You'll also see later in column E the HLS bonds. That's down at the bottom, $3.13 million coming in from those bonds that'll be sold. There's nothing in column F because we haven't hit a full quarter yet, so I can't show you any of those actual revenues, or column G, but column H is our proposed expenditures, again, from the budget summary that I just showed you, a couple blank columns still, and then the proposed deficit or surplus that you see in column K. All right, so then I have to go and find out, are we really okay with these numbers? So in Fund 10, you're going to notice in column K, row 8, you're going to notice that it looks like about a $2.4 million deficit in Fund 10. You should be concerned when you see that, so here's my explanation. $1.5 million in early taxes went specifically into Fund 10. So really what that deficit looks like is $860,000. Is that great? No, but that's on par with what has been approved for the last several years in the Ed Fund. If you look at what our current balance is in there, it's $7 million. So we're doing just fine in there, okay? The Fund 40 with transportation has been a problem for us for the last couple years, and with the advice of our finance coach, our CPPRT, our corporate personal property replacement tax, those funds have been increased pretty dramatically since COVID. It's not going to remain up there, but we're told to anticipate at about 70% that revenue coming in. But the advice was, why don't you share that between, we have to put some in Fund 50, but why don't you share that between Fund 20 and Fund 40? So by doing so, we are able to make sure that Fund 40 wasn't going into the negative too far, and we're going to be able to cover that with our fund balance this year, okay? And then going forward with the wind farm, we're going to be able to have a greater EAV to recover from that. Let's see, Fund 30 down at the bottom, that's where we pay our bonds back from, so we should be concerned if we see a deficit there. It's not a true deficit because of the early tax money that's sitting in there. We're fine in that fund. Fund 50, we've been under levying in there because we had a large fund balance. We will not be under levying going forward, but we're doing fine in that fund as well. Fund 80 is where we pay tort. It's where insurance premiums come from. We can levy for, we can ask for what we need. So we will begin to ask for what we need in there because we've used up our excess in that fund. Fund 90, it looks like we have an overspending of over $1 million. That doesn't account for the bonds that are coming in. So what I did was in the expense column for Fund 90, Rusty Wolling and I worked together and we decided about how much we thought we would spend on those projects this year. And there's not going to be, it's not a deficit because the HLS bonds are not recorded on that line yet. They're recorded in a separate place. So we will absolutely have the funds to spend in that area. It's just the way the recording goes. So if you look overall at the grand total at the bottom, I do want to point out that in column E, the $16,950, that does include the new bond money coming in. Then if you go to the very bottom right, the projected fund balance at the very end, we're still over $8.8 million. Okay, so we are in a good spot right now. Going forward with wind farms coming in and all the anticipated expenditures that we have coming up, we're in a good spot. That was very long. I apologize. Any questions?
There we go. Yep, we're good. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I'll cover a few things. Dr. Stanifer did cover a few of my items, but that's okay. I'll go into a little more depth there. I do want to thank Mrs. Weiler. She did an awesome job with our first family art night. I got a lot of positive response to that. You know, it seemed like a very simple and an easy night, but I know she put a lot of time and preparation into that event. And it was really great. Also wanted to thank Mrs. Clayton. She brought the cheerleaders over to assist with stations. Then also Ms. Ramirez, she also brought some of her art students over, and they also assisted in the evening. So very fun event, and I appreciate that from her. We also had our Growing Together pre-K night at the end of August. Another wonderfully attended event. We had over 100 individuals that were there, all pre-K families. We were able to go to the pool. We provide a free dinner for that event. Kids get to swim, obviously. The other part of it, too, is that, families get to see each other outside of the school setting, and so it's a great way for families to connect and build relationships, because some may not know and may not have grown up in this space like some of us have, so it's a great way for them to network and kind of learn about other people in our community. Yeah, Miss Beeman's night is coming up tomorrow, so if you want to come celebrate my birthday, we will be there tomorrow night from 5:30 to 7 for our book fair. It is going to be awesome. She has done so much work in planning for this event also. There's going to be kind of a campsite theme inside the cafeteria. We'll be reading. There will be a book fair. We will have the library open for a family checkout, which is a really cool idea. So, if you're not, let's say, able to provide some books and buy some books, you can still come and check out a lot of new titles that we have in our library. So it's a great opportunity and a great equity opportunity for families in our district. We'll have the therapy dog there that students can read to. It's just going to be a fun event. So hopefully you guys can make it. And then,
Will you be wearing a birthday sash?
I will not be wearing a birthday sash. That's okay. I appreciate the offer, but if you have a hat, maybe, I don't know. And then, let's see, last thing, Dr. Sandifer mentioned it too, but we have completed our fall benchmark testing, and so we do a couple of different things with that. We do iReady testing, which is a computer-based program that assesses both reading and math. And so that gives us kind of it's kind of a universal screener in a way, because it provides some areas so we know where students are at from Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. It also provides some diagnostic data, which we can utilize to kind of drive some of our instruction, planning for Tier 2 interventions, and also just planning for Tier 1. If we see, trends Tier 1 in a grade level, we're able to put in a targeted intervention across the grade level to support all students. So it is really a good tool. We also do Fonda-Citadel benchmark assessments. Sometimes we call them BAS at times. We'll do those 3 times a year, and first through third. We only do them twice a year in kindergarten. But they provide reading levels in a couple of ways. They provide kind of an independent reading level for students. So when they're reading at their desks or reading with a partner, they make sure texts are where they need to be, and then they also provide instructional reading levels for us. And so when teachers are meeting in small groups, it provides teachers with some kind of clear text that they should be reading based on that student level that pushes them and scaffolds that learning so they can get to that next reading level. So that's kind of just a quick overview of some of the things that we've been doing up to this point. And obviously, we'll be tracking student growth throughout the year through growth monitoring, and then also 3 times a year we do that benchmark assessment. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Huddleston?
Good evening, everybody. First thing I want to share with you guys is how excited I am that, as I put at the top of my school news in the report, that our enrollment is up to 218 kids. We gained 8 kids since this time last year, so that's exciting, and I love to see the trend of us bringing more students into the building. Again, the traditions that I get to experience in Blue Ridge are just really great as we continue to try to build community in the school. The first night event that we held, we had tons of families through. We had Kona Ice come through and help raise money for the Booster Club as part of their sales. Just being able to talk to the families at each grade level. In the gymnasium, I talked with the 5th and 6th grade families together, and then the 7th and 8th grade families together, making those connections, especially with those new families, but then also welcoming our new 4th graders in and getting them a tour through the whole school, because some of these kids have never been there, even though maybe they've got a sibling, they just aren't as familiar with it. One of the cool things that happened as we were preparing as a staff days before school started, we had the day, like 2 days before school started, everybody was around, lots of staff were in getting their rooms ready, and some staff children were around helping out. And I had 2 high school students come to me and ask if they could help with something. And that was Mercedes Manuel and Sydney Beckman. And as I wrote in my notes, we have these amazing lockers in the junior high locker room. If I see any Blue Ridge alumni in here, you probably know them. Inside those lockers is a recorded history of many things. Some of it not as uplifting as we would hope as we're presenting. So with a can of paint and a couple of paintbrushes, those two young ladies painted the insides of our lockers, and so our returning students got kind of a fresh start, if you will, to those. So if you had something there historical, I apologize in advance. Just to piggyback on Mr. Payton's conversation about iReady, I mean, he did a great job of explaining that, but it is such a powerful tool at our building in the sense that as students come in and they take this diagnostic in the fall, it does lots of things to give us kind of a snapshot of both reading and math for our kids. One of the great things that it does is it helps us, because their sample pool is so large, that take this iReady diagnostic, it lets us know where our students compare through national percentiles. And so we use that in our grade level collaborations to talk about specific kids, and that's really a powerful tool when you're talking about trying to have instructional leadership in the building and talking about how are we going to support the students in our building, especially as we look at our bottom 25% of our students and figuring out what supports do we need to have for those kids. And as again, Mr. Payton said, that tool even breaks some of those diagnostics down to individual areas of instruction for both reading and math to help us really focus in on those students and have really meaningful conversations about kids. So I'm really glad that we have a full adoption of that this year, and I hope that we continue to leverage that tool both through as a diagnostic tool and also about the learning path that it places kids on based on those assessments. And I don't know if you've had it's one of those tough tests because it's an adaptive test. It's made for kids to get a 50%, and that's hard for some of our kids. And so we take some time to explain it, adapt. So as kids get questions right, it gets harder and harder and harder. If they miss some, it gets a little bit easier to kind of find exactly where their level is. So we've spent some time kind of coaching our kids and making sure that that the data that we get from this needs to be good data so that we can go ahead and make instructional decisions in our building. So Mrs. Cole-Ross and I have spent times talking with teachers and staff about that. And even on the junior high level, during our collaboration, we met and we went ahead and realigned our intervention period in our building in the 7th and 8th grade wing so that we can leverage those times, that time in the day, so that students that need some more help in reading are with those particular reading teachers and those particular math. And we even have a small group that's getting some enrichment, and they're currently doing a novel study. So those are some pretty cool things to have some instructional impact on the school. Any questions? Yeah.
How well received are the inquiries with the students on taking the tests and encouraging them to do well? Are they receptive to that and they want to spend the time to do their absolute best?
I think it's kind of like a lot of things. As our younger kids come up, as Mr. Payton's going to have this in his school, it's going to be kind of, it's what we do. I will tell you, some of our older kids, we have to find other stronger ways to kind of motivate them at times because it's new to them and it just seems like one more test. And so I spent some time talking with them during their PE times right at the start of the year before that and saying, hey, we're going to be doing this like we did last year. I really need you guys to take your time. Another thing we did a little differently this year from the advice of one of the trainers from iReady was instead of having them take it all at once, do a 20-minute session because they typically take about 60 minutes each, both reading and math, and then just have them stop and then come back the next day because when they log back into that assessment, it picks up right where they left off. So we felt like that maybe gave us some more authentic data this year than maybe last. As we're learning best ways to implement this program.
Nice.
Thank you.
Mr. Easter.
Well, between Dr. Stanifer and Mr. Payton and Mr. Huddleston, they've said everything, so thank you. I'm just kidding. Actually, I do want to piggyback on Bert just a little bit and follow up on Sig's question. One of the things that we found last year with the high school kids, it was obvious that there were some kids that weren't giving their best effort on that. And the way that iReady is currently set up, they don't really have lessons and interventions for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade kids. They are working on getting those to be part of the program, but right now they don't. So our 9th and 10th graders are the ones that we're really focusing on, and if they're not at grade level when they do the assessment, then we set up intervention time so that they can work on those lessons to try to get there. So we knew we had some kids last year that blew it off and ended up being way below grade level. Well, now they know if you do this and you test come in below grade level, then you have to spend time doing the interventions, and so there's extra work or learning, I guess, is what we would like to think of it as extra learning involved. The kids view it as extra work. So that was a motivation that we found that worked really well for our 9th and 10th graders, and we seem to get some better results this fall. So so that was a good thing to notice there. Yeah, and let's see. Also, we're also working on some SEL lessons, which is a new thing for us at the high school, and we're going to be rolling those out in October. Our ILT and Tier 1 teams have been working on just like a whole new setup and a new format for what this is going to look like, and our teachers are going to learn about it next Monday at our SIP day. So. Anyway, but a lot of work has gone into that. We did have a Tier 1, Tier 2 meeting last week for the first time where I feel like we had some really good structure in place because of some PBIS training we got this summer. We're able to look at some data based on what we got from our behavior documentation form that we also created this summer from our teachers, and so that's going to be even more helpful once we get hooked up with Swiss and we get to start. Yeah, tomorrow we get that implemented. So. Lots of good stuff there. And yeah, I guess the other big thing that's coming up is homecoming week is right around the corner. Kids start building floats Saturday, as in like 3 days from now. And Sunday is the coronation. And Wednesday, 1 week from tonight, will be the parade, 6 o'clock. And then Friday, the football game, 6 o'clock. And the dance Saturday night. I couldn't get that at 6. We're doing it at 7. So, but if anybody wants a chaperone, the dance, we're always looking for chaperones. If you want to come hang out and see the kiddos, from 7 to 9, you can do that. Any takers? What? Everyone? Okay, all right. And I do want to also add that as part of homecoming week, we are bringing back the Wall of Fame, which was started here about 20 years ago to recognize people that have been great contributors to the community, to our district from the community, and it's been kind of on hiatus for a little while. COVID got it shut down, and it was really hard to get it going again with a new guy on board. But so we were able, with the help of a lot of great people, we were able to get that going again this summer. Got 11 fantastic nominees. And our panel of 9 decided that we needed to recognize 4 of them because this would be the 4th year since we had it last. So we thought we'd put 4 on, and then starting next year we'd resume back to 1 at a time. So if you haven't heard, let's see, Doc Brown is on there, and he was a teacher here at. He actually taught in Bellflower for a little while, and then taught and coached here at Centennial. I'm sorry, whoops, Blue Ridge. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see, now I'm all thrown off. Sonny Cordes was basically started our transportation department and really brought all that together and worked there for 20 years in the district. And obviously he passed away recently, and his son Brent has spoke very highly of his dad, and I look forward to hearing Brent say a little bit more about that. At the recognition thing on Sunday. We also had Maureen Gilbert, who's been involved in so many different ways in the district, and then also Steve Hoffman, who served. He was working for a local paper and would come here to take pictures, but just it was before my time, obviously, but from what I understand, just above and beyond everything that he did for kids and making sure that our kids were recognized. And so I think it was a really great swath of all the things that make up our district, and so really excited about it. And they're all going to be introduced and recognized on Sunday before the coronation. So if you want to come see them, if you know any of those people and you want to come out, I think that'd be great. It'll be here at the high school, and then after the coronation is done, we're going to have a reception in here for the Wall of Fame people, their families, anybody that wants to just come say hi. So you guys are welcome to join us for that as well. So, questions? Okay, thank you.
Elam.
Can I go first next month? Because by the time I get up, they've already taken most of my material. So I just have a couple things that I wanted to talk about and to highlight. So we have a couple, we have an Institute Day coming up and our School Improvement Day this coming Monday. We're going to have a guest speaker, Courtney Orzel, who's going to talk to our teachers about finding their why and to really motivate them to think back to the beginning of why they went into teaching and how they, if they maybe have lost some of that spark, how to regain it and come back to school on Tuesday with really encouraging and exciting ideas. We will also be focusing on our SEL curriculum. Snyder, the intermediate and junior high, and the high school will each meet separately with Abby Lyons, our SEL coach. And then on October 6th, I know all the principals and Dr. Stanifer talked about iReady. On October 6th, that's going to be an iReady focus where we have someone coming from that company to really, now that we've taken our fall benchmark, how to really dig into that data and help us use that data to drive our instruction. So we're really excited to learn more about that program on October 6th. Dr. Stanifer mentioned, I wanted to just give you an update on the dual credit that's happening at the high school now. I put some numbers in my report. We currently have 18 students enrolled in English 101 and 17 students in our first year experience course. I'm meeting monthly with those teachers, with the administration and the counselors, just to make sure that, you know, their needs are being met, just see how the courses are going, if there's anything that any of us can offer to them as support, and then my role of kind of acting as a liaison between our teachers and Parkland College as well, to communicate any needs or concerns that we might have. And then this spring we'll have 2 courses going, English 102 and Art Appreciation. And then the last thing Dr. Stanifer said I had to share, which I don't like talking about myself, but she told me I had to, and she's the boss. So a couple months ago, I applied and was appointed to one of 5 open positions to be a part of the Consolidated Committee of Practitioners, which purpose is to advise ISB in carrying out the responsibilities specifically for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, which governs our Title I, Title II, and Title IV funds. And so there will be 2 representatives from Northern Illinois, myself, and a representative that's in Gibson City, and then a representative from Collinsville that will take those roles. It'll be a 4-year term. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about, you know, the title program and how we can use that knowledge to support our students in our district. So anyway. So, questions? Okay.
Next is technology.
I think you guys all have the report that we had, so some extra things we have to add to that. Back when we started our network refresh, the project's been going on for about 1.5 years. The company that we selected, Ubiquiti, to provide all the hardware that we had for that system has worked out great. Part of our report's talking about how things wrapped up. We had some hiccups when we finished up we're wrapping up the project, but at this point, the project's complete. Everything's working great. We've actually seen some improvements in performance for our network, so all of those are good things. But the flip side to that is that we've also had some problems. One of the major problems that we're having is with our phone system. This spring, when the phone system was, or actually last fall when the phone system was implemented, it was done in a kind of an emergency fashion. We had the phone system that we currently have went down. So we implemented this system because we were testing it for the network refresh. We pivoted, put it in. It worked fairly well. The big thing was cost savings. It saved us a tremendous amount of money month to month on our phone bills. and was great. We had some hiccups, problems in the spring, but nothing severe. We thought a lot of those would be taken care of over the summer. They were not. When we finished with our network refresh, our problems compounded. Now we're having some major issues with the phone system, dropped calls, delays when making calls out, failed calls, lots of different things that we just can't have as a school district, given our need for safety and things like that with our students. So as a result, a couple weeks ago, I spoke with Dr. Stanifer about where do we go from here. We talked about giving it a couple of weeks, see how things went. We've been in contact with support with the company. They haven't been very helpful when it comes to the phone system. We have only email support. We do not have any kind of phone contact where we can actually speak to a physical person. I actually today, this afternoon, received my first email from an individual, not from just a support site, but they weren't very helpful either. We're not going to continue with that phone system because I just don't see that there's really an option for us but to move on. So to that end, I've contacted 3 different companies about possibilities of moving on to a different system for our phones. All three of the companies have responded. One came back with a very, very attractive proposal. Their organization is pretty robust. They have a long list of Fortune 500 companies that they provide phone services for, including large chain restaurants, places like that use phones on a very regular basis. They seem like a really good option. I'm still evaluating the other 2 proposals. They were just the first one to get theirs in. So to that end, I think it's important that we look to make that change just because even if we get the phone system that we have fixed, I just don't see that it's a good fit for us. We can't continue to have problems with it, especially if we're not going to get any kind of support on the back end. So that's kind of where we're at. Does anybody have any questions for me? Timeline, yes. So if we decide to pivot and move on, I've discussed the fact that we need something very, very quickly. All the companies agreed that that was not a problem for them. From the moment that we pull the trigger on moving on, we should be looking at roughly 10 days to 2 weeks to get a system implemented. It would take roughly another 10 days to 14 days to get our phone numbers ported. During that time, we would be in kind of a transitional phase where we'd be transferring phone calls coming into the district to the new phones and just utilizing the new system to call out, very similar to what we did with the last transition. So our conservative timeline would be about 30 days. It actually could take much less than that, but. Yes?
These companies that we're looking at, do they provide the better service like phone technical support or a technician to come out and look at that? Are we?
It's not really, so all of these systems are all cloud-based, so there's really not, technical, as far as like on-site service is really not required because it's really their networking products. So we don't really need, what we need is somebody to be able to provide the back-end software support for the products, and that's what we're not getting right now, is that software support. And yes, all of the companies are, from every review, independent review that I've looked at for all 3 of the companies that I was looking for, all of them come very highly rated from their, not only from their customers, but also from, industry reviewers.
Something we can build into like a contract. If we're going to buy your service, then you're obligated to provide X, Y, and Z. Is that not
All of them have some type of a support services that are part of their product. They differ, on what they provide, but the basics are all there. The number one thing is I'd like to be able to pick up a phone and talk to somebody. That's number one, and all of them provide that service. So.
What are we going to do with all the stuff that we bought from Ubiquity? Can we send it back? What's happening with that?
So that's an excellent question. There's some different things that we can do. There's not really any return policy at this point. We've had it too long, so that's really not an option. I believe their system as a whole is a good system. Okay, Their other networking products are very good. They're robust. We've been impressed with them so far. I think their phone system, at least from a support standpoint, needs some work. The system itself, when it's working, actually works very, very well. The cost savings that we incur by using their system is phenomenal. I mean, it's great. It takes our phone bill from $2,400, $2,500 a month that we were paying with Frontier down to roughly about $90. So yeah, it's a huge savings. And I mean, the phones themselves, they don't owe us anything because they paid for themselves in the first month we used them. So, you know, we don't have any additional costs that we've really incurred along with the phones. So I think holding on to them, finding a storage place for them, at least for the short term, holding on to them. If something improves drastically with their system or their support improves and we can reevaluate them, then possibly it's something that we can, you know, go back to at some point. The contract from the new companies, most of them are 1 year. At least the front runner in my mind gives us a 3-month out. If after 90 days we don't feel like they're a good fit or something radically happens with Ubiquity that we want to move back to them, we could do that if we wanted to. I don't see that happening. But after a year or so, if the phones aren't working out for us, if there's a market for them on the, you know, out there that we can get rid of them, then we'll do that. But I think for the time being, it'd be a good idea to hold on to them.
So probably being a proposal or, you know, from the companies, but how much do new phones cost if we have to buy new phones?
So with IP phones, they vary a lot. So it depends on feature set, how many lines they can access, display sizes. There's so many IP phones out there, it's unbelievable. I mean, there really is a lot of them. Again, the front runner in the proposals that I saw, at least all of the teacher phones, the phones that would be going in all the classrooms would all be free. They would have just they'd be included as part of the pricing. The larger display desk phones that would be used for admin staff, secretaries, people that utilize the phones a lot, those would run us, don't quote me on it, but I think it's around $200 a piece, thereabouts. So, and that's similar in what we paid for the Ubiquity phones. There were $30 for the desk phones in the teachers' rooms, and roughly about $150, $175 for the display phones. Yep. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
We have the operations and maintenance, transportation, and food services reports are in the board packet. Up next, we have the approval of consent items. If there are no questions about those, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented. Kenna? Yes. Okay. Up next is old business, the Prosperity Win Resolution of Support. Do you want to talk about that, Hillary? It's you.
Sleeping on the job. Okay, so you heard from Prosperity Win last month, and they came back to us and asked if we would be willing to sign a resolution of support. It was slightly different from the resolution that was printed for us last month. We do have Josh, correct? Josh here with us again tonight. I don't know if you have any questions. You have the resolution in front of you, and if you have any questions, Josh would be here to answer. If not, then our signature would give them another proponent on their side for their project coming up in Piatt County.
Are there any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, I need a motion and a second to approve the resolution of support for Prosperity Wind as presented. Jonathan? I'll second it. Yes. Okay. Up next, we have new business, appointment of board members to board committees. We had discussed this previously, and we have all the board committees here if we want to talk about, I'm guessing everyone wants to stay on theirs because we've just recently done this, but then for Derek to determine which ones he wants to be on. All of them? Does everyone remember the ones there? Are there any that strike your interest on these? Oh, do you? That's true. He's like, I have to. Okay. So we have the policy committee, the finance committee, the negotiations committee, insurance committee, and then the facilities, grounds, and construction committee. I would think facilities, grounds, and construction has a vacancy now with Rusty gone, because I know he was on that one before. Okay. Derek's like, I'm good with whatever. I can't remember. Hillary, do you know which?
Policy is Jonathan and Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Finance is Sig and Francie.
Mm-hmm.
Negotiations are Francie, Hannah, and Sig. Insurance is Hannah and Jason. Facilities, Jason, Sig.
And a blank.
Derek. Who's inactive. INPW board has Jonathan.
Yeah. Yeah, why are you not?
I am. Yeah, I'm on policy and what else was I did something new besides negotiations.
All right,
It
so,
wasn't insurance, because I did not want that.
all right, so Jonathan, Kenna, and Chelsea are policy.
I think you did finance. Was it finance?
Yeah, I think you did.
Really?
And so finance would be Sig, me, and Chelsea. Derek, just speak right up if anything sounds interesting to you. Negotiations, again, we don't expect to negotiate this year, so it's an easy committee. And right now, we have me, Kenna, and Sig on that. Insurance committee, we currently have Kenna and Jason on that. And then Jason, Sig, and Derek on facilities, grounds, and construction. No. I don't, not that I know of. Are there any others, Derek, that you're? Okay. And I think that if there was something that you were like, hey, I'd like to be involved in that, we're always open to more voices at the table for anything, so. Okay, that sounds great. All right, so did you get all of those that I had? Okay, so I need a motion and a second to appoint the following board members to the Blue Ridge Community Unit School District Number 18 board committees for the 2023-2024 school term as presented. Okay, roll call.
Jason Nolan? Sabinger? Yes. Hannah Johnson? Yes. Derek Fernandez? Yes. Chelsea Levelman? Yes. Jonathan Yeagle? Yes. Francie Love?
Yes. Okay. Up next, we have the revision of policy 7.180, prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment.
Okay, so there's been a slight change to, because of the Public Act, we have to have some additional language in policy 7180, and even though press has recently revised policy 7180, there is still language that is required due to the Public Act. Every 2 years, ISB requires a superintendent to report that their bullying policy is up to code, and we have to answer a set of questions and attach our policy to prove that it is up to code. That has to be done by September 30th, and so this is our 2-year timeframe. So we have to get that done. So in order for us to be able to do that, we need to update this policy. So even though press hasn't put it out yet, we need to beat them to the punch. So in red there you have that we're including the different categories that cannot be harassed. Would be the new categories would include physical appearance, socioeconomic status, and academic status. And then the new language also includes that notification of an alleged incident of bullying has to occur within 24 hours after the school's administration is made aware of the student's involvement. And no longer is it enough to say that it should be done promptly. It has to be within 24 hours. And the school shall make diligent efforts to notify a parent or legal guardian utilizing all contact information the school has available or that can be reasonably obtained by the school within the 24-hour period. The other update that we wanted to make, we had the incorrect principal's name listed for intermediate junior high school, so we need to make that change. And with your approval, we will do so to be up to date.
Okay, are there any questions? I know that we had this on the agenda last month. Okay, if there are no questions, I need a motion and a second to approve the language revision and contact information update to Board Policy 7.180, prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment to align with Public Act 103-47 as presented. So moved. Kenna? Chelsea? Yes. Okay. Up next, we have the consideration of increasing hours for the combined custodial/maintenance position.
Okay, and as listed there, we've created the new position, 30-hour-a-week position. Up until recently, we had received no applicants for the position. Recently, we received 3. 2 of them were viable applicants. Rusty started in the position of O&M supervisor in August of 2023. With his experience and his time in the district so far, he has found that his recommendation right away was that that position should be a 40-hour position. There's enough work that would support that ongoingly. We need to get our maintenance people off the mowers so we can get them into the buildings doing the work, especially with the 10-year HLS project list that we have that's quite significant. So it would be prudent if we could make that a 40-hour position. We could put the posting out as soon as in the morning and try to get interested parties in for an interview as soon as possible.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. If there's no further discussion, I need a motion and a second to approve the combined 12-month custodian/maintenance position to be increased to a 40-hour work week position for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Sig? Jonathan? Yes. Okay, up next we have the consideration of a deadline extension for pre-K and kindergarten for policy 7.1, health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusions of students.
So Michelle Case, who was recognized this evening, was in communication with another DeWitt County school nurse from Clinton Schools. They are being audited right now, and so our nurse was informed that there is a new requirement in DeWitt County because of some lead factors in our county, and also combined with the age of Snyder Elementary School and combined with the age of our pre-K and K students. All of our students of that age needed to go through a lead screener, and that lead screener was going to come back positive because of those 3 factors: their age, the school's age, and living and being in DeWitt County. Was going to come back that they needed to have a blood test, a finger prick. And that was supposed to be all taken care of at the physician's office before the physical came back to us. Our physicals are due by policy on the first day of school. Otherwise, you are not allowed to come to school. So we were made aware of this maybe about 10 days ago now, And so Michelle did what she should do. She reported right away to Ryan and then to me, and we made a plan. She was in contact with IDPH, she was in contact with the local health department, she was in contact with ISB, and she has been working like crazy to contact every single family of the pre-K students, of the K students, bring them all in for screeners. So she was allowed to do the screener with them, to record that on the physical form, and then notify them that they needed to have the blood test done. Sometimes she found out that the physician had actually done it, but not recorded it on the physical. Other times the physician had not done it, but the family was referred back to the physician who should have done it in the first place. So this is an example of basically the school being given the responsibility to make sure something got done when it wasn't ours, to own in the first place. But Michelle did a fantastic job. I don't know if Ryan, if you know she's done with everything by now. She thought she would be done by today. Okay. So, but with our policy the way it stands, up until from the second half of August until right now, really our pre-K and kindergarten students, we found out after the fact, were not supposed to be in school because they didn't have all of that paperwork complete. So this is kind of a backdating situation. So if you approve this, then it's legit that our pre-K and K kids can keep going to school until all of this paperwork is done, which should be probably by tomorrow or Friday. And this would just be for that age child for this school year, and really the state's, bless you, really the state's deadline is October 15th. So it's just our school district that says it should be done earlier, so.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. If not, I need a motion and a second to extend the health examination deadline for pre-K and K students from the first day of student attendance as stated in policy 7.1, health, eye, and dental examinations, immunizations, and exclusions of students to October 15th, 2023 for the 2023-2024 school year only as presented. So moved. Kenna? Second. Sorry, Chelsea. Jonathan? Yes. Okay, up next is the Safe Routes to School resolution.
Okay, Sue McLaughlin, city manager for Pharma City, contacted me. They are going to be applying for a 100% federally funded grant for $250,000 to provide new sidewalks that would help access to Snyder Elementary Street, and so Snyder Elementary School. So they would like our participation in that grant. So actually, Bert's building and Ryan's building, all those parents are going to be asked to fill out a survey. We have various adults who have been asked to fill out questionnaires. We have teachers who have been asked to survey students a couple times a week. And this resolution letter of support is another piece that Sue has asked for us to provide support, saying that yes, we would support and we would be beneficiaries of new sidewalks. Our kids could be walking to school if there was a safer way.
Any questions? Okay. If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the letter of support for the City of Farmer City to apply for the Safe Routes to School grant as presented. So moved. Chelsea and Sig. Derek, anytime.
Yes. Jason Mullen? Sig Ingram? Yes. Kenna Johnson? Yes. Jonathan Gable? Yes. Derek Fernandez? Yes. Francie Miller?
Yes. Okay. Up next, we have the consideration of COVID resolution.
All right, so what you have in front of you is something from a proactive superintendent within the state who wants to kind of beat us to the punch with some of the new COVID information that's coming out. We're hearing from health departments that we could perhaps have another swell of infections coming up this wintertime, just like we hear flu cases would be on the rise, we hear COVID cases could be on the rise. The superintendent is putting out a potential resolution that boards could consider, where a board may decide that they would like to say, IDPH and Governor, we are not responsible for enforcing the COVID resolution that you may decide to pass. In other words, the school's not going to be held responsible to do the contact tracing. The school's not going to be responsible to require a mask. We would still tell families that kids should stay home when they're sick. They should stay home through days 5 when they test positive with COVID. When they come back, days 6 through 10, they are recommended to wear a mask, but we would ask that we would not be put in the position where we would have to be the enforcers if a student would come back and refuse to wear a mask. That's not really the school's position to be doing that enforcement, and we were asked to do that previously. It's not really our position to be doing the contact tracing for the health department, but we were put in that position. So there's been a little bit more time that's gone past since mid-2020 and 2021, and so I thought this was worth bringing to your attention to see what your feeling and perspective was at this time, should we get to the place where the governor or IDPH tells us that it's our role to put these enforcements back in place.
Who was the superintendent that drafted it?
Jonathan Tallman. I can look him up real quick. I don't remember offhand. Sounds familiar.
Is that a suburb? Or is it Redbud?
Yeah, Redbud. Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Any comments?
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'd support that. Absolutely.
Does anyone have any questions? Kenna, anything? Okay. Do we want to move forward with approving a resolution now, or what do people feel about that? Derek, you've not even read the resolution? I feel like you want to read it. Sid?
Cool with voting for it, or having a vote on it, but yeah, Derek hasn't read it yet.
Okay, let's give a moment so Derek can at least read this, since he had no access to the board packet prior to
Yeah,
arriving
that's
here
hard.
tonight.
Hard.
Stuff where it's like, Derek, how do you feel?
Yeah, that's hard.
He's been a good sport so far. Any other questions? Comments? Everyone's good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can somebody clarify the process of how this comes into effect?
I would say if the resolution was signed, if IDPH and the governor comes to us and says that this is what you need to do, our board would say we would refer back to the resolution and we would not do the contact tracing portion. We would not do the requirement of masking. We can still recommend that a student who's returning from COVID would, right now the recommendation is that they could return on day 6, but they would be masked through day 10. But the problem comes with, what if the student says no? Then they're putting us as school personnel in the place of, meeting them at the door and turning them away, saying you can't come in if you don't cover your face. That's not really the school's role, and we were put in that place last year. So this resolution is saying that we can recommend, but we're not going to be the enforcers at the door, nor are we going to call police to have somebody removed. We're not going to do the contact tracing. That's somebody else's job. We're here to instruct our kids. We're here to have our kids in seats and learning.
And how many school districts do we anticipate passing this?
Let me look for the update from him to see if I can. I don't know. I remembered he was collecting information, but he just asks if we do have the board sign it, that we give him our email address, name, school district, and what date we adopted. But I don't have access to like a spreadsheet to see what other districts. But I can tell you that it's been sent far and wide.
Besides just saying no, what are we, like, do our current COVID policies cover what we should be doing, or do we need to amend? Like, are we also looking at what our policies will be and what should we do to address that?
What the differences would be, basically, I think is what you're asking.
Yes.
Right now, we have not been in the business of meeting somebody at the door and telling them that they have to go home, but we have been very firm with there have been some situations where we've been very firm with you have to put a mask on, can't come back, putting our nurses in some very awkward situations, having some very tough conversations over the phone or greeting people at the door. And also with the contact tracing, that's been putting staff members in situations where there's a lot of work that's being done with that. And I'll tell you, for a while it was it was an admin kind of text party at night, watching for how many kids would pop with the testing, and then waking up and finding out who's going to make a phone call home to the families before the school day started. And it was, because sometimes the results wouldn't come until 3 in the morning, and then somebody had to be calling the families before school started. And then you're putting bus drivers in awkward situations where they're the first ones to greet a kid, and they were told they had to turn somebody away. It was tough. I'd like to be able to say that when you're sick, stay home, and when you know that you have been sick, then wear a mask, please. We don't want kids to spread things, but kids get sick. I don't want to be insensitive to it either, but we know that our kids have lost some instructional time by not being here. And we feel like it's very important that they are in seats.
Okay. All right, so again, if we have no questions, and if we want to have a motion in a second to approve the COVID resolution for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented, we can do that. It's really up to the board.
I would be in favor of that.
So you did a motion?
I'm doing a motion.
Chelsea and Jonathan.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, up next, we have the consideration of adding a one-on-one aide position.
Okay, we do have a student with a disability who's currently in the 3-year reevaluation process. There is a likelihood that a one-on-one aide might be recommended during that process, and that position doesn't exist at this time. So I would request that if it's determined at the IEP table that this is necessary, that we have permission to move forward with posting creating the position so we can post it and fill it as quickly as possible.
So, Chelsea, I haven't asked the motion. Are there any questions? Okay, if not, I need a motion and a second to approve adding a one-on-one aide position at Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School, if found necessary during an upcoming IEP eligibility meeting as presented. Jenna, Jonathan.
Did you put her up to it?
I did not. I did not.
Oh, wow. I think that's funny, Chelsea. You didn't even get the second. Derek.
I was so shocked. Yes.
taking me down with you.
Yes. Okay, up next is the resolution authorizing preliminary proceedings in connection with the issuance of general obligation school bonds up to 3.2 million of working cash fund bonds and paying for costs related thereto as amended.
Okay, so this is part of the process to sell the working cash bonds, and this paperwork was provided by, through PMA, through Steve Adams. The reason for that larger number than what you're used to seeing is that just gives a little bit of flexibility to make sure that we can receive the 3 million. Steve will work to make sure that the way the sale is organized is as efficient as possible, trying to get the fees down as low as possible, but sometimes they need that little extra bit of wiggle room in there. So that's the reason for the additional 0.2, and that's typical for them to do when they're selling bonds.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Derek, do you have any questions? Okay.
And this 3.2 million is for the track, or this is for the HLS?
This is the working cash towards the track field and Memorial Plaza project.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no questions or comments, I need a motion and a second to approve the authorizing resolution in connection with the general obligation school bonds series 2023 for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Oh, Derek. I wasn't going to do it. And Jonathan. Yes. Okay. And next, I need the, is the approval of the MOU custodial overtime assignments, Article 6W.
Okay, so currently there's no contractual language in the CBA for overtime assignments for custodial staff. We've not had an issue with that before. Currently, we have open positions for cleaning the gyms here at the high school due to the retirement. That's part of the reason why we've opened up that new custodial maintenance position. And we have the new procedure is that when we have weekend events in any of our buildings, we have a custodian on staff. It's just the safest way to operate, liability, et cetera. So because of those reasons, there's more overtime available now than there has been before. And in order to kind of make sure that there's no conflict in who's getting that overtime, we felt like Rusty and the BRFT president and myself got together. We thought, let's put a process in place to make sure this is equitable. And so we mimicked the language that's used for the bus trip picks. I think that's fun to say, bus trip picks, and turned that into custodial picking of those extra assignments. So, and that's already been signed by the union, and if you are in agreement with that, then that would be something that Rusty would put into place to make sure that that is equitable across the board.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, if not, I need a motion and a second to approve the MOU adding Article 6W custodial overtime assignments into the collective bargaining agreement for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Jonathan and Sig. Yes. Okay, and now I need a motion and a second to move from open session to closed session for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district at 8:33. Chelsea and Sig.
Derek Fernandez? Yes. Chelsea Levelman? Yes. Jonathan Yeagle? Yes. Jason Rowland?
Pretty good.
Sig Eager?
I'm talking 8:30.
Hannah Johnson? Yes. Francie Miller?
Yes.